Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to the Audio Analyst. Pardon me. This week, I have another guilty treasure. This time, the 1982 Dire Straits masterpiece, Love Over Gold. Dire Straits was formed in London, England during the post-punk era in 1978, led by guitarist and vocalist Mark Knopfler, who is easily one of the most distinct guitarists of his generation. Their sound was minimalistic and stripped down, yet owed absolutely nothing to the punk movement. In fact, if anything, their R&B bluesy heartbeat was heavily inspired by the Roots revival of pub rock. And while Knopfler fashioned their sound around laid-back blues rock, somewhat reminiscent of the flavor of J.J. Cale, he also infused jazz and country inflections, and over time began to dip his creative toes into the epic song structures of progressive rock. Now, this remarkable music is ultimately complemented by Knopfler's thoughtful lyrics, which in some ways approximate the winding stream of consciousness narratives of someone like Bob Dylan. So why am I starting with the fourth Dire Straits studio album rather than, say, 1987's eponymous release? I mean, I could just as easily afford this treatment to each of the 6 Dire Straits studio albums. It would clearly be justified, and I just may do so at some point. But for me, as exceptional as the first 3 releases were, 1982's Love Over Gold was so different from the bluesy, honky-tonk pub rock core that was so vital and important to the power and success of those first 3 releases that it clearly heralded something different and was in fact almost a statement of purpose. It is an ambitious, engrossing, and vital record, one that is simply breathtaking in its successes, offering musically fascinating and melodically exhilarating indulgences. Just one of the many things that make this album stand out is that it seems to be of 2 minds, often almost at the same time. One that is crisp and explosive, reminiscent of the lightning bolt on the cover of the release, and yet infused with another that was more dreamlike and haunting. And while it was conceived, written, and produced in an era when most pop music was formulated almost exclusively as product, with Love Over Gold, it was as if Knopfler was daring to put art before airplay, to soar off into the fringes of progressive rock while maintaining that distinctly Knopfler-esque sound. Now, Mark Knopfler is a skilled, tasteful guitarist who plays in a way that is so emotive that you are drawn into his atmospheric instrumental passages. And his first big Guitar Hero moment came with the fleet, glorious, and catchy melodic solo from his 1978 hit, Sultans of Swing. And that unique style was so welcome to me, as it came at a time when punk seemed to be denying, almost as if it were trying to render obsolete the idea of a guitar hero. And yet, Knopfler built his reputation on an intensely creative guitar virtuosity, showing remarkable command over an astonishing range of tones and textures, from ragged distortion to enviable precision. I mean, the guy was just phenomenal. Well, he is phenomenal still. What makes his playing so special? I've asked myself this a bunch of times, and I'd suggest that the biggest contributor to Knopfler's signature and engaging style is that he plays without a pick. He just uses his fingers, which seems to elevate and enhance the immediacy and underlying emotion and soul of his playing. Now, while the lineup of players here still includes Dire Straits' original bassist John Illsley and drummer Pick Withers, Mark's brother David had already disappeared, having been the second guitar for the first 2 LPs. For LP number 3, Making Movies, it had just been Mark, John, and Pick, with some added keyboard work provided by Roy Bittan. And it almost seemed like an afterthought. But with Love Over Gold, we see the earnest return of a second guitar, contributions from a gifted guitarist named Hal Lindes. It also sees the crucial addition of Alan Clark on keyboards, which really is paramount. It plays a significant role on this LP. Now, Knopfler used a number of differing guitars on this particular album across all the sessions, including 4 Schecter Stratocasters. Apparently 2 were red, 1 was blue, and 1 was a sunburst, and a black Schecter Telecaster. He also used Ovation 12 and 6-string acoustic guitars, as well as an Ovation classical guitar on Private Investigations and the title cut Love Over Gold. On Industrial Disease, he featured a custom Erlewine automatic, and he used a vintage 1937 National Steel guitar on Telegraph Road. Fabulous. Now, Love Over Gold was recorded at the Power Station in New York between March 8th and June 11th, 1982. Mark produced the album with Neil Dorfsman as his engineer, and this would really just be the first in a long line of collaborations between these two characters. The original mastering was done by Robert Ludwig at Masterdisc in New York, and all the later remasters were also done by Robert Ludwig, but they were done at Gateway Mastering in Portland, Maine. The album was released on September 20th, 1982 by Vertigo Records internationally, and then by Warner Brothers Records in the United States. Now, I have to say that Love Over Gold turned out to be a truly apt title. And as I mentioned earlier, almost a statement of its purpose. I mean, in suicidal defiance of commercial sensibilities, Mark had fashioned a collection of radically expanded epics and evocative tone poems that demanded the listener's undivided attention. To me, this was an ambitious leap forward in maturity, as well as an enormous risk, leaving behind the more pure, organic R&B impressionisms of the first 2 LPs, Dire Straits and Communique, and even a much more serious departure than the move to the telling of gripping short stories like those on 1980's distinctive Making Movies LP. Love Over Gold represented several chancy changes, including foregoing proven producers, with Mark producing this one on his own. Now, while there is an incontrovertible trace of 80s about the whole project, from the use of the dreaded digital gated reverb to the track listings on the cover being represented as a display from a computer monitor, Love Over Gold's roots could be described as an amalgamation of a pair of rock tropes that dominated the 2 preceding decades: Floydian expansiveness and Dylan-esque lyrical content. Knopfler's lyrics are as important as his guitar work. You know, I've actually heard Love Over Gold called Wish You Were Here meets Highway 61 Revisited. Now, while I can't really get on board with that analogy, I can understand its genesis. But with only 5 tracks, and every one of them a brilliantly conceived masterpiece in its own right, it really does follow the Wish You Were Here blueprint remarkably closely, with its 2 long, misfortune-laden tracks filling side 1, and side 2 comprising a rocker, a ballad, then one more last misfortune to close. But enough of this gibberish. Let's talk about the music, okay? Side 1, track 1, is Telegraph Road. At nearly 15 minutes, the album's opening may challenge the average pop fan's attention span. Yet the song's historic sweep and intimate tension, recounting the building of the American metropolis and one man's disillusionment in the wake of its accelerating deterioration, allows Mark to implement a variety of surprising instrumental voices. From the opening airs, including a simulated clap of thunder, its ominous tone draws you closer. The acoustic guitar keyboard, and deep bass set the stage for what is burgeoning into an amazing ride. The delicate balance between Knopfler's haunting guitar work and Alan Clark's piano keep you wondering which instrument will lead. But this interplay isn't about to give you an answer quickly. It meanders to and fro magically, all the while Ilsley's bass and Withers' drumming accent that intimate interchange with perfect counterpoint. The back and forth is magnificent, meandering through the Baroque piano motif to the closing extended solo guitar crescendo that is further ignited by Pick Withers' accentuating drum work. Now, Mark has said that this piece was inspired by a bus trip he took down US Highway 24, which runs from Minturn, Colorado to Independence Township in Michigan, where, simply called Telegraph Road, it runs for about 80 miles as a major north-south state trunkline highway from Bedford Township at the Ohio state line through metropolitan Detroit. Side 1, track 2 is Private Investigations. Oh my God. Starting slowly and building with guitar calls and answers, first off deep left, then off deep right, while the pure tones of the guitar-driven melody in a minor key, kind of a Spanish-tinged tune, comes in dead center, you're in for a treat. With a gurgling marimba accentuated, delicately plucked acoustic guitar, the song has Knopfler ruminating in a deadpan monologue with an effective delay on his voice. Then John Ilsley sounds a quiet warning with a stalking bass line before the song erupts in a dramatic burst of guitar gunfire and tragic-sounding piano playing. The second instrumental half of the song is the real reward here. An immaculately arranged wash of synth and guitar licks over a throbbing, portentous single bass note. As the track winds down, there is the sound of a glass or a bottle being dropped on the floor, smashing and skittering off into the left, as Alan Clark's inspired keywork drives us to the close of the piece. Thus ends one of rock and roll's perfect sides. Guys, side 1 is perfect. Moving to side 2, track 1, we have a cut called Industrial Disease. Now, side 2 kicks off with a magnificent drum and bass performance and some welcome lyrical levity. But here, the weight and powerful pace and beat really are driven by the bass guitar and drum kit, with Mark's pop-funk guitar chops perhaps foreshadowing a hint of Money for Nothing. But overall, Industrial Disease is an infectious, fun romp. It's a blast. You'll love it. Side 2, track 2, is Love Over Gold, the title track. This is a whispery ballad that plays the jazzy tingle of vibes against an almost classical piano air and the violin pluck of a synthesizer to heighten the images he's painting. Again, it features the delicate counterpoint between piano and guitar, highlighting a dynamic and powerfully enchanting arrangement. The subtle brush and stick work by Withers throughout the track adds nuance ever so slightly reminiscent of a Steely Dan composition. The title track is a tasty, perfectly arranged pageant before the heaviness of the closing track. Side 2, track 3 is It Never Rains. Wow, folks. This is a dark masterpiece. Starting light, its noodling open belies the complexity and power soon to be unleashed. It focuses on the vibrancy of the piano, but begins evoking a deeper intent. Very few guitarists can begin to match the kind of musicianship Mark displays in his instrumental coda here. Over a spiraling, incessant riff, he finally stretches out with a fiery guitar solo, while the song and the album slowly fade into its sauntering melodic close. Guys, to me, Love Over Gold is an immensely satisfying and complete package. Knopfler, as a guitarist, plays with a sensibility, style, and skillfulness that is both unique and captivating. Here, under his direction, this album elevates polished rock to art status and signifies the coming of age of Knopfler as a singer, songwriter, and mature musician. In many ways, Love Over Gold may be seen as their Asia, a sophisticated and unhurried, sober and seductive work. And where Brothers in Arms would later seek to balance the band's typical sound with pop sensibilities, Love Over Gold adopts a little of the feel of progressive rock and blends in elements of classical music. It's loaded with intense melody and murky soundscapes, punctuated by virtuosic guitar work and overcast with dark and lyrical subject matter. The result is such a distinct, uncompromising art, a triumphant and magical work, and one that provides a genuine thrill to experience. Now, I've added the link to this release on QoBuz below the video, and it's a 16-bit 44 kilohertz stereo CD quality stream. Now, if you're into optical media, then I recommend, in this order, the 2000 Warner Brothers remaster using Sony's Super Bit Mastering noise shaping. Then the 2011 Japanese Vertigo SACD, or better still, the 2019 Mobile Fidelity SACD. For you vinyl fans out there, while the 1982 US Warner release is acceptable, it's not the right one for you. You want to try and dig up an original 1982 UK Vertigo release, 6359109, like this one. It's great. I scored a promo release, which I would take hands down over the 2000 UK Simply Vinyl reissue. This is SVLP 176. It's not horrible, but the UK Vertigo is considerably better. But if you really want to hear this record in all its splendor and glory, go get the Mobile Fidelity 180 gram 245 RPM reissue, FSL 2-469. Guys, it's $50, but there is no other pressing that can compare. Everything else I've heard sounds compressed and much cooler overall by temperature, sonically, than the MoFi. It's fabulous. In closing, I'd like to remind you that the Audio Analyst website has had a full facelift now over the past couple weeks, so I hope you'll go check it out. If you like these videos, there is a ton of useful information there. And finally, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you are enjoying these conversations. And thank you for dropping by today. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.